Hey guys, welcome back. So, ever since I was young, I've always loved rockets and space travel. And yesterday, I actually launched a 2-stage model rocket with a camera and a Jolly Logic altimeter 3 on board. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, well, the wind is blowing towards this direction, so we should be able to retrieve it. This is a real high rocket, man. I can't see it. Oh, man. It went real high. And I really wanted to show you guys that onboard footage of the rocket launching and then dropping off its first stage, but I lost it. And a neighbor actually saw the general area where it landed because I did it in a big field, but it drifted over to a neighborhood. And a couple of walkers saw it land in a certain general area of houses. And so I went door to door to every house in that general area and even a little outside of it to see if I could find the rocket. And nobody had it in their backyard. Obviously, I looked everywhere else first. But anyways, when I was a kid, I loved doing model rockets. And because I also really love space, I always dreamed of being able to put one of my own rockets into space. And obviously, launching a rocket from the ground and putting it into space, huge endeavor. Takes a ton of money to do that. And then I figured, well, people send weather balloons practically into space. I mean, technically it's not at the Kármán line. In fact, it's not even really close. But you can't see the atmosphere anymore. Like, you just see the Earth and then black. So it's pretty much space, you know. But if you launch a rocket from a little bit below that point, but around that point where the balloon is about to burst, the maximum point where a weather balloon can take something, then I bet you could get it into space if the rocket was powerful enough. And I bet that because it's in such high atmosphere, that power is a lot less than people would think, especially a lot less than launching something from the ground. So I figured, if people can launch rockets into space from the ground with a model rocket that's, you know, about that tall, well then I bet you I could build something that's launched from a balloon launch pad, not just from a balloon, but a launch pad that's being raised by balloons on the corners, because then you have a flat launching surface. So first we'll take a look at the rocket here. And so, as you can see on the side, we have 2 solid rocket boosters. Now these are going to be what's known as a candy or sugar fuel, because I actually have a ton of KNO3 or potassium nitrate. And you just mix that with sugar, which is obviously cheap. And so I'll be able to make these huge boosters, because I have a ton of materials for that already. Then, in between the solid rocket boosters and the main rocket, we have 2 explosive bolts. Now I'm going to create these explosive bolts with a firecracker or some other kind of explosive. But how these explosive bolts work is that once the fuel burns to the very end of the solid rocket boosters, it will ignite a fast fuse, blowing the explosive bolt and jettisoning both of the solid rocket boosters from the main rocket body. And then the middle rocket is a composite fuel. Now, the reason why I'd be using a composite fuel is because it has a slightly higher specific impulse than these sugar rockets. But I did look it up. Sugar fuel actually does have a higher specific impulse than a black powder fuel. So it would be better than your average Estes rocket motor. So in terms of specific impulse, sugar rockets actually aren't too bad, but composite is going to get your best specific impulse, so that's why the center rocket, the one that will be ignited in the highest atmosphere, that is going to use a composite fuel here. And as you can see, there's another fuse that's below the explosive bolt fuse, and that's so that it ignites the motors before the explosive bolts are blown, so that this motor starts going before these drop off. Then we have stuff like our camera and camera hood, and then our recovery system up here, and flight computer in here. And I'm going to use a thrust vectoring system for this rocket here, and that'll be controlled by a flight computer up here, and it's just going to have a simple stabilization program for when these explosive bolts blow and these solid rocket boosters are jettisoned. This is going to destabilize, so we're going to need thrust vectoring to be able to stabilize the rocket, and I can just get a stabilization thrust vectoring program. Now, this is going to be the hardest part of the entire thing, and that is transmitting a live feed video signal all the way back down to the ground. Because I want to watch the rocket launch in real time so that I know right there that I have a good launch. So I'm going to be using a similar camera to what drones might use, but I need to increase the power a lot more. And actually, the previous owner to this house had satellite TV, but we don't, so I can take a satellite dish off the roof, so I can use that to increase my reception of the signal. But I also have another solution for boosting the signal that I'll get into in a minute. But not only will this chip here send video signals back to me, but it will also receive, translate, and execute a signal that ignites these solid rocket boosters from all the way on the ground to all the way up in the sky. So here's another dish on the bottom of the balloon launch pad, and that will receive signals. Now we'll look at the launch pad here. It's going to be a triangular shape like this with the launch pad in the middle. And then here, as you can see, we have the 3 balloons. It's in this triangular shape because, first of all, triangles are geometrically the strongest shape. And second of all, I can spread the balloons out so that the rocket can not hit any of the balloons on its way up. A lot of raccoons are launched off of one balloon and they're just hanging like this, but I want a nice, flat, and relatively stable launch. So I'm going to use this 3-balloon rig that I've designed here. And as you can see, here's the receiver dish. So now we'll get into the steps of the mission, basically. So phase 1 would be releasing the payload balloon. Now the payload balloon is just the balloon that has the rocket and the camera and all that stuff on it. As you can see, I didn't draw the dish, but the dish is supposed to be there. Phase 2 is how I may solve the reception program if I can't figure out something that's just one-to-one signaling. So if I can't get a direct signal from high atmosphere to the ground, then I'll figure out a way to send a repeater balloon up. So this will just be a single balloon, or maybe 2, that will carry a signal repeater. And I'll launch that when this is around halfway to when it will go out of reception, so I'll have a continuous feed of video. Then when the time is right, the solid rocket boosters are ignited by remote control from all the way down on the ground to up in the sky, and the rocket takes off. Finally, the solid rocket boosters are jettisoned, and the main rocket kicks into gear. The rocket is later recovered by GPS tracking. Now that's very important because this thing is going to go incredibly far, so it would be literally impossible to find if I didn't have some sort of GPS tracking system. And I mean impossible. Like, there would be no way. And I really want to get a super accurate GPS tracker as well, so I can get it down to like feet or maybe meters or whatever. I mean, I obviously can't be perfect, but I want to get it as close as possible.